Hi there, and welcome to Type Student. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the design and typography of Chinese propaganda posters during the reign of Mao Zedong. It's October 1st, 1949. Zedong, chairman of the Chinese Communist Party, has just established the People's Republic of China, or CCP, after seizing control of the country following a civil war with the Nationalist Republic of China, dating back to 1927. Chinese popular and commercial art by this time had already been heavily influenced by both Western powers and Soviet Russia, and under Zedong's rule, government posters and propaganda sought to show an idealistic China. It's common to see poster collections with stoic faces, red color palettes, and Zedong portrayed as a guardian figure among the common proletariat. However, poster designs changed even during Mao's reign, as China underwent his two 5-year plans and later the Cultural Revolution. The Great Leap Forward. The Great Leap Forward, otherwise known as the Second 5-Year Plan, was the CCP's attempt launched in 1958 to transform China into an industrialized communist society from the previous agrarian roots. Chinese government art and propaganda had already begun to show Soviet Russian influence before the Great Leap Forward, and their art under Zedong would seek to rebel against Western powers, although their art still took some notes from Western advertising. Many posters produced during this time prescribed to socialist realism, a realistic art style established in the Soviet Union in the 1920s. Although socialist realism took decades to develop under many different artists, Soviet Commissar for Education Anatoly Lunacharsky had considerable influence on the creation of this style, and pioneered the ideal Soviet man seen in posters as happy, healthy, and hardworking. Chinese posters followed this direction during the Great Leap Forward, depicting the everyday proletariat as the ideal CCP citizen. Let's take a closer look at some of these posters. Dated 1958 through 1960, they exhibit the socialist realism style common of this era, with strong, happy, prosperous farmers and workers. Many contain Chinese characters with the CCP's words of encouragement, although the type here is rarely the focal point of the artwork. Numerous farmers and peasants were illiterate, and thus posters needed to function purely through visuals. In reality, these posters show little of what life was like for an average Chinese citizen. As many as tens of millions perished during the Great Leap Forward from famine, violence, and poverty, among many other factors. These posters were mass-produced in the millions, which meant that paper quality was poor, and old texts were reused and sometimes printed over. The process to make these posters took place at professional art houses with trained artists. The artists of these posters could be at risk for producing these materials, should they fail to portray what the CCP desired. This poster, with the words, "Long live Chairman Mao," was produced in 1959 by Ha Zhongwen, a poster designer from Shanghai People's Fine Arts Publishing House. However, this particular design suffered criticism, from the absence of Mao to the decision to show the wealthy instead of the prole. Zhongwen was beaten on multiple occasions as a result of his poster failures. In an attempt to restore political standing after the disaster of the Great Leap Forward, Zedong launched the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution in 1966. Marred by violence and confusion, this period saw propaganda posters more frequently including Zedong as a more central figure, usually put in a position above workers. This was in an attempt to rejuvenate Maoism into the country by spurring Zedong's cult of personality and purging nonconformist parts of society. The CCP national anthem during this time, "The East is Red," was based on Mao, and included lyrics such as "In our hearts is the sun, Mao Zedong." You might notice these posters also include people holding a small book. This little red book was given to the Chinese population and usually included Maoist teachings and sayings. The posters continue the socialist realism theme in simple visuals. Not every poster followed this exact style. See this woodcut, for example. Other poster styles from this era included dazabao, or big character posters, that served as a typography-based poster put up by officials or even members of the public, to shame those persecuted by the Cultural Revolution, such as teachers and landowners. Under Zedong, government propaganda and posters took a direction that many are familiar with today, but the cartoony nature of these posters was a stark contrast to the atrocities suffered by the citizens during this time. After Zedong's death in 1976, propaganda posters would not stop production, but this distinct era of posters would not last too much further. And that's the typography of Chinese propaganda posters.